Alright, welcome back to another Roblox programming slash game development tutorial, and this is going to be a new or like a part two to a topic that I've already kind of discussed, which was dictionaries, and it's kind of under the subset of tables. Tables are extremely useful and valuable inside of Roblox Studio, and a dictionary is a type of table that's different than an array. And today I wanted to show you specifically how you can use this concept of object-oriented programming by using tables. Now, there will be a whole chapter essentially on object-oriented programming, but just to kind of show you the fundamental concept and idea behind object-oriented programming, we're going to go ahead and look at how you can use dictionaries to store data. Now, if you haven't watched my tables 1 and then tables 2 and then dictionaries part 1, please go check that out on YouTube. You are going to be completely lost if you just jump in here and try and figure this all out. We're starting to get to some more advanced topics, and it's important that you really lay down the foundation and groundwork before we get started into this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So just in case you don't remember from last time, a dictionary is essentially the same thing as an array, but you can essentially assign the key. So rather than this key always being 1, this is your standard array, right? The key always kind of prints like this. You can essentially assign the key as a string or whatever you would like it to be. Now, the idea of an object comes from the fact that everything inside of our world is defined by something, right? So, for example, me, right? I have glasses. Well, these are blue light glasses. I don't need them, right? But, I'm wearing glasses. I have brown hair. I have brown eyes. I am 6 foot tall. I have all these different attributes about me. And I behave a specific way. I talk a specific way. I talk in the language English, whereas another human who looks exactly like me may speak in Spanish, right? So their behavior is different when I ask them to speak, right? I can be flexible sometimes. I play music, right? Somebody else, if I ask them to play music, right? I play piano, but somebody else, if they played music, they might play guitar, right? So the idea is that an object is anything that exists in a programming world. It's literally anything. And then a dragon is an object. A creeper is an object. Everything's an object in programming. Even a string is an object. And the idea is that an object is defined by 2 things. Those 2 things are going to be its attributes and behaviors. Now, we'll cover the behaviors section later, but that's just a general rough touch on what object-oriented programming is. Again, the very basics, but objects are defined by attributes and behaviors. And you can even see this, right? For example, a part. This is all the attributes that make up what a part is in Roblox Studio. You can have so many different types of parts, but they're all still part. So we would say that part is the class, and the specific part that you're talking about, for example, let's say I rename this object, or object part, is the object. So this object part is the object, and it's coming from the class part, right? And that's kind of how you would think of objects being defined using a class as a template for a specific object. So let's go ahead and look at how you can use tables to store data. So let's say these are musicians, right? Now, inside of this, I can actually create a dictionary kind of within a dictionary here, right? So go ahead and delete these. Alright, so let's say, for example, inside this dictionary now, I'm going to create an instrument. Right, and an instrument will have the value of piano. So that's my instrument. Let's say, as well as a musician, read music, right? Or we can even write this as can read music. And I can assign this to true. Yes, I can read music, right? Let's do another one. Let's say age, right? Let's let's say I'm 32, and I can continue this entire thing here. I'm actually going to go ahead. We can get rid of these guys real quick so you can kind of get the gist here. Keep going here. I can say, what's something else that would define a musician? Talent level. Right, let's say my talent level, and let's say this is defined from 1 to 10. Let's say I am a 10, right? Essentially, what I've done here is I have Anthony, right? And then I have all of these different things that define me as a person. Now, what's interesting is you can use a keyword here known as self to describe self, right? To describe, actually, nope, that's not what we want to do. Never mind. You can't use self. We'll talk about self later. But essentially, you have all of this stuff here, right? And you have all of this information that can quantize what I am. So, for example, if I typed in musicians, right? All right, now I'm looking for the musician Anthony, right? All right, then Anthony, I want to figure out his instrument. I'll type in string instrument, right? So if I wanted to read this, I'm going to go ahead and print. I can pull that data. He plays piano, right? So again, this is a way to describe me as a musician using these dictionaries inside dictionaries. And what's fascinating is you have musician here. This can now be, instead of this, you can now say, name, right? Or like inside of this, you could have the musician class. And then now you'll have name. And essentially, you can describe and orient all these different things about me, right? So essentially, you can create all this different stuff and all these different properties and attributes using essentially like a dictionary inside of a dictionary. So I've created all of this data which describes a musician. Now, this is all the data that describes a musician, and it's all organized in this massive table here. So let's say I have a different type of musician. Let's say I have a, different musician, right? Let's say, this is musician. Let's call this musician 2, right? So this is going to be the class musician. And then let's say this is Miles. And Miles plays the trumpet. He can read sheet music. He would have been like 92 right now. And he also has a talent level of 10, right? And this is how you can essentially create storage. And when you talk really about tables and how they're used in dictionaries, this is really how they're used. You have information stored just like so. So let's look at a practical example. Let's say, not in Roblox Studio, but in real life. Let's say this is a customer. Right, so we'll go ahead and create customer here. Now, customer is going to have a name. Customer will have an email. Right, and now this is, irock@gmail.com. And then is member. And then we'll say true. Age, let's say they're 28. Let's say, what's something, phone number. Say it's 111-1111. And you can store essentially all this information. And then let's say, like billing, or like money ode, or anything. You can store essentially all this stuff about your customer, right? And then if you need to do any of this or find any of this, right? So let's say I need to send this customer an email. I would type in customer. Okay, so this pulls this specific customer. Now I need to send them an email, so I need their email address. So I'm going to go ahead and go customer. I'm going to grab the specific customer class here, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to find their email. Hold on, this simple, right? Customer. Let's actually do this instead. Let's do this instead. So let's say this is the customer data. Let's say that the name of the customer is Miles, and this is all the information about Miles. So customer, bracket, Miles, bracket, and then you'll do email. And you can pull their email. So print all of this. And it finds it. Right? So I am quantifying the customer Miles here through this information. Then, if let's say I need to change this email address, right? Let's say Miles is now has a new email address. I can set this equal to I do not rock at gmail.com, and this will indeed change his email address. So now if you wanted to do something inside of this, you could. But this is again a nice example of how you can use dictionaries to essentially contain tons of data about a person, right? And this is a super big concept because it's leading into the idea of object-oriented programming, which we will be discussing in great detail. Cool. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that I just discussed here, please feel free to send us a message and really study this, guys. Super important concept. I'll see you guys in the next one.